Fred VanVleet has had one of the most successful careers as an undrafted player in the NBA. After a great 4 years at Wichita State University, the guard went undrafted in the 2016 NBA draft and ended up signing with the Raptors and playing the G League. After working his way up from the G League to the Raptors bench, which he spent a couple years on, he then became an important contributor on the 2019 Raptors championship squad and then became the starting point guard of a Raptors team and ended up being an all-star and breaking the Raptors franchise record in points. Although Fred VanVleet's story is really good and he's been a great player for the past couple years, I think it's time for the Raptors to move on. The 2021-22 season was easily VanVleet's best so far in the NBA. He scored a career high in points, shot pretty efficient across the board, and even was a good defender throughout the entire season. And fast forward 1 year, you can't say as much of the same as that past season. His scoring production dipped, and although his playmaking did increase, he shot more erratic and shot 34% from 3, which dipped from his career average of 38% from that time. VanVleet was known for being an above-average three-point shooter and one of the better shooting guys from the league, and this year he shot below average from outside, which is where most of his production in scoring came from. So this dip in three-point shooting as well as a dip in defense, because in the 2021-22 season, VanVleet was actually vying for an all-defensive second-team spot, and there was like an argument you could put him on the ballot. Now, this season, VanVleet was not as good on defense, and you could easily see it when teams exploited him and when they used him as a guy to attack on with their opposing guards. Let me use some stats to back it up. So this past season, Fred VanVleet shot the third worst field goal percentage in the entire league, which means out of all qualified players, he was the third worst shooter when it came to the field. The other two guys behind him are Lu Dort and Killian Hayes. Lu Dort is a defensive specialist. He's not really that good on offense. Killian Hayes, many of whom consider to be a bust, he hasn't really figured it out in the NBA. So Fred VanVleet, a guy who's a former All-Star who averages 20 points a game, this is not the type of guy you want to put him into the conversation with, especially on the offensive side. Lu Dort is still a quality NBA player, but that's more on defense. And then the amount of shots he took, which was 16 per game, this is 32nd in the highest in the NBA. So he's shooting the third worst, but he's taking the 32nd most shots in the entire NBA. And when you look at threes, he's taking the 6th most threes in the entire NBA, averaging 9 threes a game, but he's shooting 34% from 3 when league average is 36%. And up to the season, like I mentioned, Fred VanVleet was shooting an career average of 38% from 3, but this past season he shot 34. And many believe and many call Fred VanVleet a shot chucker, especially Raptors fans. So let me break down this argument. And I've seen Fred VanVleet do this in games. What he does is he often takes a lot of time off of the shot clock, and he kind of holds the ball, tries to do a little small dribble moves to create some space, and then chucks a 3, which is, you can see that a lot when in the box scores when he goes 1 for 9 or 1 for 6 from 3, and that's really where he just negatively affects games. It's not like Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby. When their offensive night is not going, they know when to turn to playmaking or defense or use other strengths. Even a guy like Scotty Barnes, who's really developed as a playmaker. So Pascal Siakam, he's had some inefficient days, but his strengths are he's a really good defender, and he can also facilitate and help his team win games. So I've seen a lot of games where Pascal might have like 6 points at the half, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists. And these games are really where he wins games for the Raptors. In the second half, he can settle back in, get into more mid-range and post-move shots, and he can really make them. Fred VanVleet, however, his main impact is through scoring and the ability to hit threes. And because he was poor in clutch time as well, his threes very rarely really did turn out to be impactful or really mattered. So Fred VanVleet, when he doesn't score, when he doesn't shoot the ball well, he really isn't able to help out this Raptors team. And that's why I think sometimes I feel like he's carrying dead weight. And while, yes, he did improve as a playmaker this season, it's not like where he decided to, even though I'm shooting, 1 for 6, let me decide to facilitate. You didn't see that from him often, as you saw guys like OG switch their strengths, or like guys like OG, Pascal, and Scotty switch their strengths when they were having off nights on the shooting and offensive side of the ball. Because to be frank, every one of them had off nights. It's just whether you made your off night a good night using your various other skills. Let's talk about Freddie's defense, because Freddie used to be a very good defender, and I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability to be, but this past season his defense really decreased. Although he does still get a high number of steals, his defensive rating decreased from 111 to 114. And if you don't know defensive rating, the lower a defensive rating you have, the better. And that defensive rating last year was a third or fourth best on the Raptors, but this year it's a pretty average, if not below average score for this Raptors team. A team that is long, a team that is a very good defensive unit, which has OG Anunoby, Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes. All these guys have been good or plus defenders, especially OG and Jakob Poeltl. So when you have a guy like Fred VanVleet, the point guard of this team, who's also small and undersized, yes, he does hustle, and yes, he can fight and get boards. When you can attack a guy like that, I think teams will take advantage, and especially when they're scared to attack some of the other taller, longer guys on this Raptors team. Fred VanVleet is a good player, however, he just doesn't truly fit the Raptors and what they have, and he doesn't really impact this team in a winning way. And yes, the way the team can win is how much he scores, so that's how far his impact goes. And on the topic of whether the Raptors should re-sign him in free agency, I personally thought they should have traded him away at the deadline. However, in free agency, they shouldn't let him go for nothing because he's still a valuable asset. So, however, I think a sign and trade thing where they can get a young valuable asset back in return is probably the best move for Masai in the front office, because Freddie's going to command a hefty contract, and if the Raptors are okay paying a guy 20-something plus million a year to now produce the exact same he's been producing for the past couple seasons, because the Raptors with this current team don't have a championship ceiling. I mean, they can be like a 4 to 5 playoff seed and maybe make it to the second round, but that's the farthest this team can get with Freddie, Pascal, OG, Scotty, and Jakob Poeltl. So I think the Raptors should kind of shake it up and, get more of a replacement at the point guard position through their backups, or I think they can get a nice young player like Terrence Mann, for example. I think the team can move in a different direction, which positively impacts Freddie and the Raptors. If you don't remember, Freddie played a great role when the Raptors won a championship. I think if he plays a role like that for a similar team, where he actually scores a bit more, however, he still stays pretty efficient and hits some big shots down the road, I think he can be still a very quality NBA player. Hope you guys enjoyed this video about Fred VanVleet and my thoughts of him and his impact on the Raptors and what they should do with him in free agency. That's going to be it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed again, and bye.